Hey everybody, I'm Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to talk about why Gen X is misunderstood and why we're proud of it. And the most obvious reason is that we grew up feral. And there are all kinds of memes and stuff about that, you know, the hose water and all this. And all that, the memes are true. I'm not saying that. But that's just a shallow, pointer at our childhood. That's not a deeper look into our childhood as Generation X. The street lights and stuff, all that. You've all seen the memes and stuff probably, or heard people talking about it maybe. But it's the mindset from growing up like that really sets us apart from other generations. Now, being outside by ourselves or with our friends, whatever, but away from adults for most of our lives, all summer long, and even during the winter, we'd be out there playing in the snow. It really fostered a sense of self-reliance because, there weren't adults around watching everything we did. We didn't have four walls around us protecting us. We didn't have censorship online to protect us from naughty words. It was just the world and us. And you had to figure stuff out. If you cut yourself, you had to figure out how to stop the bleeding, or you'd have to end your fun and go inside and probably have to sit down and watch General Hospital for the rest of the day or something like that, So that stuff sounds small to adults listening to that now, but as children, 10, 11, 12-year-old children out there growing up like that, that set the mold for our identity. That's like, putting a clay pot in a kiln and it bakes it hard. That's what that childhood did for us. It really imprinted that sense of self-reliance, of individualism, not real big fans of authority, because we didn't have somebody watching over us all the time telling us what to do. So, when we grew up and got into those kind of situations, we weren't real keen on it. We didn't like being told what to do. I know I don't like being told what to do to this very day. That's one of the things that just really irritates me, have somebody tell me to do something. So growing up feral like that really, really left an imprint on most Gen Xers as a rule. Now I'll say that, not every single Gen Xer grew up that way. Not every single Gen Xer has that feeling of self-reliance, that ability to rely on themselves and get shit done. It's just like every other generation. Any group in the world, you have your differences, but I think the majority of Gen Xers are self-reliant. They're self-aware. We know when we need to pull back a little bit, and because we've been through it, we tested our boundaries and stuff when we were young, and when we were learning about the world, and that whole individualism and that sense of freedom, which we lost, as we grew up, but we know what it was like to have that freedom. And now we've lost it, with all the government control and stuff now, the online censorship, the TSA, and just all kinds of shit. The list goes on, and all the ways that we've lost that freedom that we had earlier in our lives. But we had a whole lot of freedom too, in that, growing up the way we did, and that just fostered a real solid sense of self-identity, self-awareness, and self-reliance. And we like these things about ourselves. I'm not going to lie, that they are good qualities for a person to have. So when people misunderstand us, because we're self-aware and self-reliant, and we don't need anyone else. We don't need someone telling us what to do. Yeah, we're proud of those facts. We're proud of who we are, and we don't care what anybody else thinks about that. That's the Gen X way. We don't need your opinion. We don't value too many opinions, and that's the way it is. None of that shit's going to change our lives one way or the other. Another thing is that we grew up during a unique time. It was just before the federal government really took hold of the education system in the United States. So we grew up without all that indoctrination and stuff that was set in place by the federal government. Now, since then, we've all known what happened. I can't believe that's one thing that really blows my mind, is that the federal government takes over the education system, and after that, they take the American flag out of schools. Does that confuse anyone else? Does anyone else see what that the contradiction there? The federal government should want the American flag everywhere, and they do the opposite. But I'm spinning off in a different direction there. But we were rated, when I was in school in the 70s and 80s, we were rated #1 in the world as far as education went. The United States was the top dog in every metric across the board: reading, math, college graduates and all that stuff. And now we're like 40th after the government has had control of the education system for, what is it now? 40 years. Now we're 40th. So every single year that the government has had control, we've slipped down one notch on the scale. And that's really sad for the kids, but it doesn't change the fact that we grew up without that stuff, right? We didn't have any of that government interference with our schools. We grew up when it just depended on the teacher. If the teacher wanted to teach the kids to be free thinkers, then they would. And I had a mixture of teachers. Some of them would be indoctrinating type of people, and some of them would just be free thinkers. They just wanted to teach you to think along the lines of George Carlin. So and that really set us up for the transition into the information age. So we were ready to embrace the information age and use it with open eyes and clear minds, right? Now the boomers before us, most of them were too old by then. They were already just entrenched in that old legacy media, that lying ass, just false narrative legacy media, bought and paid for by the government and big business and shit. So they were trapped in that. They still are, the ones that are left. And the younger kids after us, they were born in the information age. So that's all they knew, and all they've known is the lies and the propaganda, and from all of this social media and stuff, right? That's all they've known. Now, Generation X has made that transition. And so we were able to embrace the information age, but we weren't born in it. We weren't born, and taken off the blinders inside the information age. We went into it with our eyes open, and we're more aware of the bullshit. Okay? We're able to detect this shit from any source, whether it be legacy media or new podcasters and all this other shit we see. And if they're being disingenuous and blowing smoke up our asses, Generation X is at least capable of detecting it. Not saying all of us do, but at least we have the ability, because we weren't born and raised in one age or the other, as the boomers and say the millennials or the Gen Z are, right? So there's that. We're that transition generation, and our eyes are open, and we call bullshit a lot, and that is misunderstood by other generation people of other generations. The boomers don't understand why we don't listen to those talking heads on MSNBC, and why we distrust the government, and why we keep telling them to quit watching that garbage. They don't understand us because of that. And the younger generations, they don't understand why the hell we're calling bullshit on these podcasters and this other stuff, right? And that is just, our bullshit meters are just too highly tuned now because of that transition, that the transition we went through. And again, we're proud of that fact. We're proud that we can detect the bullshit and call it out when we see it. So, yeah. And I think that's important for at least one group of people in a society to be able to do that, to be able to point out the lies and the hypocrisy to everyone else, and at least call their attention to it, whether they want to turn a blind eye to it or not. At least they were warned. At least, someone pointed it out to them and said, hey, look at that. Question that. And I believe that's Generation X's job, and we're doing it. Well, we're doing it. So, and I'm proud of my generation. I'm proud of us, and I'm proud of what we're doing. Hopefully, keeping people's eyes opened, and maybe opening even more eyes. The other thing I believe that sets us apart and why we're misunderstood is because we don't expect our feelings to be manifested out in the world around us, right? Our feelings don't manifest into reality. Like a lot of, even the boomers fall into that trap a lot of times. I see, not all of them. Again, I keep saying that, not all of them, but, and I'll still get people jump in the comments. Not all boomers are like that. I know I said it in the video, but anyway, a lot of the younger generations, and even some of the boomers, and even some Gen Xers now, they expect their feelings, to affect the world, right? The entire world is supposed to respond to and be affected by how they feel inside. If I feel like this or that, then this or that should be affected, and then they get upset. They're miserable because their feelings aren't transitioned, aren't reflected in the world around them. And I honestly believe that that's why a lot of these people are miserable, just because they can't, they're expecting the impossible. Their feelings cannot manifest in the world around them. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. People don't give a shit. They again, with the media and the talking heads and stuff, and the therapy now and all this, and people actually expect their feelings to be cared about by other people, because they keep being told how important their feelings are by other people, and the people telling them that don't give a shit about their feelings. They're just telling them that, they're getting paid to tell them that, almost always on the media, in a therapy room, whatever. That's their job. They're being paid to say that, point blank. And so you can't blame these kids really when they go out into the world and they expect their feelings to affect the world, and the world to just, bend around them and how they feel. And they're surprised when they get their first job and everybody's not bending and conforming to the way they feel that day. So they're setting themselves up for misery, because they fail to realize that nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares about your feelings. I'm not up here. I'm not Ben Shapiro saying facts aren't feelings, or your feelings don't matter, whatever his thing is. No, I'm saying nobody, literally no one on this planet gives a shit about your feelings. Not in the long term. They might pretend to during one conversation or whatever, or they might pretend to during one therapy session. That's their job. They're going to go home and forget about that shit. They don't care. All right. Or the HR department person might listen to you bitch for a few minutes, but as soon as you walk away, they're going to forget about it and they're going to start concentrating on their shit again. People do not care. So, and that's a very important part of just growing up and realizing that and being happy. You take care of yourself and your own feelings. Your feelings are your responsibility. They're not anyone else's responsibility. And so that is why, another reason why anyway, Gen X is misunderstood, because we don't feel the need to blather about our feelings and to emote everything that we're feeling all the time. And because we're self-governed. I govern my own feelings. I had a feeling back in, I think it was 2013, I had a feeling, and I just controlled it, Probably a lot of y'all haven't had one since the 80s, but now these kids they have feelings every day, and even the boomers have feelings every day, and I just can't imagine what that's like, especially trying to imagine what it's like when people are constantly pretending to give a shit about your feelings, right? I don't know. It's just ridiculous to me. It's just so obvious no one gives a shit that I can't believe that people fall for it. I can't believe people fall for, legacy media. I can't believe any of this shit's happening. But I'm proud. I'm proud of the fact that I'm the governor of my own feelings. I'm in control of my own feelings. No keyboard warrior can reach through the YouTube comment section and get me all upset and shit, and get I'm curl me up in the bathroom with my tissues and shit. I'm just I'm proud of that fact. You can't. It'll make me laugh, if anything, but that kind of stuff is the reason why Gen X is misunderstood. And the last reason I'll say is that when we were growing up, when we were kids and even young adults, we took a lot of risks for fun, physical risk. We put life and limb on the line just for fun. All right. And a lot of these kids nowadays, they don't understand that. They can't even picture doing that kind of shit. When a lot of you've probably done this. You've told a story of something we did as kids to some younger kids nowadays, some, teenagers nowadays, and they don't even believe you. They just think you're full of shit. They think you're lying. And, to us back then, that would just be a normal day. It might have been a little crazier than the rest of them. All of our days were kind of crazy. But, maybe you did something especially crazy one day or whatever, but it was still just a normal average day. It wasn't some insane kind of, train wreck of a day. It was just a normal day. You just might have done something that was particularly interesting. And these kids today, they can't even believe that we would do that shit, right? They don't understand the mindset of just risking your life for fun. Okay, or whatever reason. Most of it was just for fun. We had video games back then, but we weren't that addicted to them. I remember playing video games for a couple hours, and then me and my buddy just throw our controllers down and jump up and run outside. We weren't just completely addicted to video games like that. To where we wanted to be inside constantly. That was just a foreign concept to us. We wanted to be outside, and we wanted that. Almost our entire generation were almost like adrenaline junkies, thrill seekers. We wanted to be extreme. That was our favorite shit back then. Whoever was the most extreme was the most badass, you know. You were awesome if you were extreme. And that, it was fun. It was a blast. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love taking those risks, jumping bikes on those rickety damn ramps, and you know, jumping off a rope swing into a stream that might have had rocks in there, or you know, sliding down those crazy hot slides, going around the merry-go-round at Mach 3, getting slung off of that thing, playing Crack the Whip out on the playground. Just everything you can think of. Me and my brother go out and catch scorpions and snakes and shit just for fun, and just out of interest. We were interested in them, and we'd catch them and look at them and let them go, you know, and that kind of shit was just fun. And these younger generations, they just don't understand that. Why would you do that when you could be in virtual reality, or you could be, you know, watching TikTok videos or whatever? And it's difficult to explain it to them. But again, I can't stress it enough. I am proud to have grown up like that. Proud to have grown up in reality. Proud to have, you know, just developed a set of balls and gone out and risked, you know, taken some risks and survived it, you know. So yeah, I'm proud of it. I'm proud to be Generation X, and I think most of my fellow Xers out there are just as proud as I am. And I'll leave you there with that. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to support the channel by becoming a member, I'll leave that link down in the description, or you can head over to the channel page and become a member that way. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can do so by clicking on that super thanks button down there. Or you can head over to Buy Me a Coffee and buy me a cup of coffee. I appreciate those of you who do that, and I'll leave that link down in the description as well. If you're interested in Gen X gear, we got some pretty cool stuff over there at Redbubble. Gen X Thinks and Gen X branded stuff, t-shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, hoodies, all kinds of cool stuff over there. But I'll leave that link down in the description too for any of you who are interested. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. That helps out one hell of a lot, so thank you very much to those of you who do that. I really appreciate it. If you have any ideas for future episodes of Gen X Thinks, please put those down in the comments, or you can email us, and the email is genxthinks@gmail.com. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.